Josh Kerr, Olympic legend, epic runner. Welcome to Untapped. Do you always see yourself as winning the race that you're starting?
I do visualization of that specific race every event. I've watched me win every single race that I've ever ran multiple times in the last 2 years to have achieved a world championship 1500 meter title, winning a 3K world title in front of a home crowd, and then winning the Olympics. A little part of me that's like, we're not anywhere near done yet.
What does it take to become one of the fastest runners in the world when everyone is chasing the same dream? This week, world champion and Olympic silver medalist Josh Kerr takes us inside the mind of an elite athlete, the training, the obsession, the moments on the Olympic track that changed everything. From brutal workouts to mental breakthroughs, Josh breaks down what it really means to live life at the edge of human performance and what separates the good from the best. This isn't just about running. It's about what it takes to win. Without further ado, welcome, Josh Kerr. Josh Kerr, Olympic legend, epic runner. Welcome to Untapped.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited for this chat.
You are someone that I've wanted to talk to for ages. I'm a big fan of yours. I find your skill to be very inspiring and your general nature as well. I just think you have a competitive edge that's really infectious. I love watching you, and I'd love to hear more about your life and your career and just what has made you become the Josh Kerr that we all know. Have you always been very competitive?
It's at the root of a lot of the things that I do, because I grew up with a older brother. Then we both played the same sports, and so we'd go and play the sports at school and at club stuff, and then we'd come home and play the same sports out in the back garden. So I think there's always been a tally, there's always been this kind of competitive back and forth between us, which is really like a very positive thing. I think my parents allowed us to kind of lean into that a little bit, and ended up being a lifelong skill that I was able to keep in what I was doing. And I think I always wanted to be a professional athlete, so it's always a good thing to have, is that edge. And those are the kind of things that get you up and get you out every day when you're having bad days, and knowing that you can't really give up on yourself if you keep the competitive edge.
Also, the discipline of rinsing, repeating it, of doing difficult things repeatedly is something that you found useful.
Yes, I think I don't like a comfortable life. I would say. I think, when you get to a certain level in sport, you see it a lot with, boxers at the highest level and fighters most of the time, to be honest. UFC, they go from this empty gym and then they become this superstar, and then they can't find that edge again. And so I think throughout my career, especially over the last kind of 3 or 4 years, I've had to create a lot more of those, difficult moments and making sure that my routine stays pretty similar, to make sure that, I'm not resting on any of these medals or any of these records. It's just, I want to keep pushing and see what else I can get out of myself in this sport.
What does your routine look like? So when you're gearing up for a major event, what are the weeks leading up to it look and feel like for you?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, the biggest control I have in those weeks is my routine outside of running. I mean, my running days aren't super long. I think in comparison to someone like you, I think I'm not out there for a very long time, but I like to get up early. So I get up in every camp that I do. I get up at 5. One of the first things I do is I go downstairs and jump in the cold plunge with my fiance. I think that's the first horrible thing to do to get out of the way, and that also gets some contrast. In the morning, I'll jump in the hot tub, and then I'll get into my gym and roll out and stretch out and kind of get ready for the day. I have a lot of really awesome people that help me. So we recently brought in a new chef, and so he's coming in making us breakfast, and then I'm out the door for practice, normally between 9 and 12. Come back, have a shower, go to bed, and get back up, and then if I'm either going to double that day or if I've got gym, then that'll be in the afternoon. It's one of those things where it's nothing crazy, but it's every single day, and I love it. I think if you can really maximize your day, especially starting that way, like, I think you always feel like you're getting better. And when I'm in my position of trying to be the best in the world, I've got to win those days, really.
How did you settle on a distance? So, you're, of course, incredibly competitive over 1,500 meters in particular. And, I think I'm right in saying the whole country was behind you at these recent Olympics. Were you ever a longer distance runner? Were you an effective sprinter when you were younger? How, at what stage of your career do you decide to settle and kind of hang your hat as such on a certain distance?
Actually, a lot earlier than a lot of people. So normally what would happen growing up, you would run, the 400, 800, whatever, if you're going to be kind of a distance runner. And then over time in school and then in university, they'll start bumping you up because you get a little bit slower. So I came into university as a 1,500 meter guy. And I think one of the first conversations they had were like, oh, we think you could be a good 5K guy. I was like, I'm not running the 5K. The 5K is a horrible distance. And no one, like, from a track and field perspective, it's not a blue ribboned event. And so I was like, I want to run, the mile in the US or the 1,500 in the world. And so I just kind of dug my heels in and I was like, I need to do what I can to stick to this. But I would say around about 16, 17 years old, I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And if I can, I really just want to do this at the biggest stage. So I think it was more to do with, I'm not fast enough to feel speedy over 800 and I really don't want to run the 5K. So it's kind of just plopped me right in the middle there.
I love the way you're being modest around your 5K efforts, not being up to scratch. You run 5K in, is it 13 something?
13, 20 something, 23.
It's just, honestly, okay, those numbers might be meaningless to people that aren't, completely enthralled by running, but just what is that pace over 5K in terms of kilometers? Do you know off the top of your head?
Oh, kilometers, it would probably be like 236, something like that.
I just honestly, as a runner and as someone that's particularly interested in
it might be 240. I'm giving myself too much credit here.
I'm not sure you are, because it's the people that win marathons are running at a kind of 250 pace, 251 average, 249.
You could be right. It's one of those things where running, as you know, is very situational. If I told you to go out, well, maybe not you. If I told people to go out and run a marathon, they're not going to run it as well as if you chuck them in London Marathon. It's, if you have the right shoes, you have the right environment, you have the right, nutrition and, crowds cheering you on the whole way. It makes a huge difference. And so when you get into these 5Ks, yes, you obviously have to be fit enough to run it, but you're very much, are you a person that's able to switch your brain off, get on the rail and kind of go to sleep for the first 3-4K and then wake up and race the last K? That's kind of how some of these look. So it's
go to sleep at 240. Yeah. All right. I mean, that is, it's a flat out sprint for me. I don't mind that because I'm not a sprinter, obviously, but I struggle to understand the difference between that pace and sprinting. How do you get there? Like, if you're somebody listening to this now that does different styles of runs, faster, shorter stuff, slower, longer stuff, you're really trying to build, aerobic and anaerobic and threshold pace, you're taking it seriously. How do you go from a, 17 and a half, 18 minute 5K down to, call it a 15-minute 5K, still nowhere near you? What changes can you make to your routine to shave minutes off your 5K time? This is the new generation of wearable technology. I want to tell you why it matters so much to me. There was a time in my life where I needed to make some serious changes. But what I've since learned is that so many others have felt exactly the same way. Whether it's about sobriety, fitness, your career, or just finding a better path, that first step is always hard, but staying on the journey is even harder. Tools like Whoop can be incredibly powerful in ensuring that you stick on the right path. The all-new Whoop hardware is now smaller than ever, with 14 days plus of battery life, and comes with a host of powerful new features like Health Span, Heart Screener, and enhanced sleep performance insights. It's more than just a wearable. It gives you the data and guidance to stay accountable and keep moving forwards. From tracking sleep and recovery to helping you understand your body, Whoop gives you real insights that can absolutely make a difference. So if you're at that crossroads or already on your way, Whoop might just be the tool that helps you keep going. Click the link below for your first month free.
It's something that comes up a lot. I get a lot of messages and emails and stuff from kids, and then some older athletes that kind of want to know what it is. But the thing is about running is it's so overwhelming with information. Like you have, your heart rate, you got your zones, you've got, you got the nutrition coming in, you've got shoes, you've got workouts, you've got all this stuff going on, where someone coming in that doesn't have like an awesome knowledge of all of that, like it's pretty much impossible to be able to balance it all out yourself. And so I wouldn't be able to do it without a coach. And so my biggest thing is I offload all that kind of information to a set of people, and I just need to worry about turning up and doing what I'm told. It's like, if you want to really try and take a chunk off your 5K, do a hard like 6-8 week block and taper into the 5K. So I think, that's what we do. I think shoes make a huge difference. I wouldn't be able to run anywhere near the times per lap, per kilometer, if I had the wrong shoes on. We have obviously slower shoes, we have carbon shoes, we have spikes that we kind of play around with throughout. And so between that and then nutrition, I don't go 15 minutes of a workout without taking on some sort of nutrition.
15, you say?
So 15, yeah.
Is that to keep your glycogen levels topped up?
Yes. So it's less even to do with the energy of it. It's more to do with coming out of it not feeling absolutely depleted, and then also having to rebuild that back up so that you can actually start to recover. And so it's everything.
So would you be fueling during a 5K?
Yes. Well, if my nutritionist was in full control, yes, I would be taking a gel in a 5K. I have not taken a gel in a 5K, but I also haven't run a 5K in about 2.5 years. And so more recently, we've been taking nutrition a lot more seriously. You won't really see that. And I think this will probably get a little bit of a stick from the running world, because there's a lot of people that won't even take stuff in half marathons. So they're like, oh, you don't need anything for a half marathon. But when you really break it down, and you even watch, Kipchoge's sub 2, when you're working at the highest rate, I think he was taking it every 5K, which means, that's every 14 something minutes. Yeah. Every 13 high, something like that. It makes a huge difference.
It's also quite a logical thing, isn't it? I've never done that. I've ran many marathons. I've never taken a gel. That for me was a real game changer. That like never actually hitting the wall, because there's no reason for your body to hit the wall, because you have a sustainable carb source throughout the run. You get tired, obviously, and your legs might slow down a bit, but you never actually hit what people describe as runner's wall, because there's really no reason for you to. That, as I understand it, is your carb source depletes to the point where your body switches to start to burn fat. And that process, whilst you're running, it is quite a tough thing to manage. And so people describe it as hitting a wall, because physiologically you're going through something that's quite potent, I suppose, for your body whilst you're exercising. And that's what hitting the wall is. So I found all that really interesting. And let me tell you something, these gels were nothing short of life-saving. It was proper stuff,
Yeah, it makes, so our biggest thing as well, like obviously I don't run that long a distance, but it's the same concept of the hitting the wall. And so the way that me and my nutritionist talk about it, and he has a great analogy with it, is like, your lizard brain doesn't know how long you're going to be running. And so its goal is to be like, hey, we've not got much energy left, so we're just going to slow everything down and start shutting things down. So the biggest thing and the biggest goal for that is we're going to keep telling him, like, we're going to keep writing them checks so that he can keep sending them out. So like taking a gel in for your lizard brain is like, oh, okay, we're getting backup fuel. So the legs can just keep writing checks. You're going to so that's what we do for workouts. It's like, if we're all out sprinting, I can even rinse my mouth out with some sort of energy drink, some sort of sugar drink, and just spit it out. And, there's some research that's shown that like that's enough for the lizard brain to be like, okay, like we're still good. We don't need to make sure that we're going to slow down because we're going to pass out. Our body's going to break. But it's just the kind of balancing, telling your brain like, hey, we're good. Sugar's coming in, stuff's coming in. We can keep writing those checks. So that's kind of the way that we look at it. And I think it's the same in any distance. If you can even rinse your mouth out with something, even if you have a bad stomach, if you rinse your mouth out, I think it can make a it can make a big difference.
Let's get into some specifics. I'd love to know more about your mindset, how you think, how you present yourself to yourself, essentially. Like, you're on the start line of the Olympic finals. It's a moment you've prepared for 4 years. You know that the world is watching you and there is a load of pressure. The whole country wants you to win. Are you wasting energy with the emotion that is flowing through your head?
We, as athletes, anyone that's done kind of a race or, a big sporting event, there's always going to be nerves. That's something that needs to be expected. And so I actually take a gel before the line, just to rinse that one in there. But,
good old gel.
For me, I'm really built for those moments. Like I train for those moments. I don't train to get better at training. I probably spend more time thinking about those moments than any other ones. And it's I practice standing on the start line for 5 minutes. I practice the, introduction. I practice what I would do and where my brain would pivot to during those moments. And, it can always go to, I don't feel great or I'm tired or whatever, but I would always bring it back to, my daily mantras, or if it's, trying to simplify my mind. But I was so excited. I think what people maybe don't quite understand when you're in the stadium is it feels like a whole different world to like sitting in the stands. When you're down here and you're in your zone and you're going through your process, you're very, very present. And if you can stay present and you don't kind of get carried away with, 70,000 people in the stadium cheering and a whole country behind you, you can't affect that outcome in any other place than the right now. And so I just go through my processes. I'm great at what I do. And so I just trust myself, to be honest. That's mostly what I say on the start line to myself, is just trust your instincts, trust yourself, and this is going to hurt a lot. And so I enjoy that part. I think that even the Olympics, I knew the first lap was going to be hard. And so the first 800, our biggest goal was just brave the storm, put your head down. And in the first 250 meters, which is normally this happens much later in my races, my hearing goes when you're really locked in.
Wow.
So my ears popped. And so I was like, oh. But, I'd worked with it, with my performance coach, and he was like, as soon as those ears go, your body's going to be in it. Like it's telling you don't need the hearing. You just need to focus in on your sight. And it was such a wonderful, like flowy place to be. And it's like a place that I'll always try and get back to in racing. It's like the most hyper focused I could be. And my body was just making the decisions for me. So it was pretty awesome.
I got chills twice during that. Like, that's just so cool. What's the take me to the darker place. So like, it's quite late in the race. You're maybe 80% in, body's beginning to really, really feel it. I'm sure you're probably feeling it ahead of that. What do you as an individual think of? Where does your mind go? Are you hearing the cheers, or are you thinking of kids, or like a scene from a film, or a song, or like what gets you going? Like, do you have a place that you go to that gives you that extra boost?
It's a place that we go to a lot in training, and so you kind of get comfortable with it. And for me, the nice thing, I popped it's almost like we're swimming. I popped my head up at 400 and I saw 54. And I was like, well, that's fast. And this is hard, and we have 1,100 meters to go. But again, like, that's where the brain goes, like, oh, we're running too fast. We're going to need to slow down. But, then my pivot point is I'm the best guy here. So if I'm tired, everyone's tired. And so then it was just, keep sticking your head down and keep kind of working, making sure that you're not got any energy leaks. And there was never going to be a point where I wouldn't think I could win it. And so I just needed to stay in and stay poised with it and not waste energy. And so my biggest thing is, making sure I'm not out in lane 2, making sure I'm not kind of fighting with people for position. And, the dark place in the 1500 is so quick. It's pretty much just the convincing of yourself that you're good enough to keep pushing and keep going for the win. And I knew the whole time that I would have a chance to win. I said, whenever that opportunity comes, just go for it. And it came at like 120 or something like that. And I just went for it. And, you know, at 75 to go, I could start feeling someone coming on my inside. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to make this line. Like, I don't know if I'm going to get there. So I was not focused on anyone but myself, because I mean, it's the fastest I'd ever ran, over 1500. And I was like, you know, someone came on my inside, the American, and you know, I was trying to hold it together to beat him, but he had much better momentum than me. And I was like, you got to get to this line, because I was pretty close to pretty much falling over. And then, yeah, got to the line, and that was what the result was. And it was just it was such a balance. It was a balance between, this is the best performance I've ever had in my life. It's not quite the result I wanted, but don't you dare disrespect the work by being upset about being second. And don't disrespect the people that have helped you get to this point, and don't disrespect your competitors that have evidently worked as hard as you to be in this spot. So that was kind of the overwhelming feeling going over the line. So it was just such a balance of emotion.
So missing out on gold didn't ruin the experience?
I don't think so. It also helped with the aftermath a little bit as well, because, you know, for some random reason, track and field thought it'd be a good idea to keep the season going after the Olympics every time. And so, you know, you go home, you finish the big exam, you go home, and you know, your mom and dad tell you to go and study. It's like, no, this is ridiculous. But you know, I now and continue to have, you know, I don't know what it would be like from a motivation standpoint to, in the last 2 years, to have achieved all of my running goals, you know, winning a world championship 1500 meter title, winning a 3K world title in front of a home crowd, and then winning the Olympics. Like, that would be pretty hard to beat. And so now I have a little part of me that's like, we're not anywhere near done yet. And so I'm taking that as a positive.
And you're carrying that into the next Olympics.
Yeah, I think it's a good storyline. You know, bronze in Tokyo, silver in Paris, and gold in LA would be, you know, it's funny how quick we can come to these, you know, conclusions and solutions. And, you know, I love what I do. You know, I love performing at the highest level and pushing my body day to day to like the limits. I find it, I don't know what else I would do, to be honest. I knew I wanted to be in professional sport. This is one that I can just really push the boundaries. So yeah, I just love what I do.
Do you ever think about when you, and I am saying when you achieve your dream, because I wholeheartedly, and sure millions of people wholeheartedly believe that you will, is that going to be a dangerous time for you after the celebration? Are you gonna, you know, take it all in? You know, will you have a big what's next moment? You just said yourself that, you know, you're an athlete, this is what you do. When you achieve everything that you want to achieve, what happens next?
I have a very great group of people around me, and so I'm not worried about it. If I was on my own, I would probably be a little bit worried about it, but I kind of already know what I want to do. Post, I think it's 2029, I think is my goal, and to stay in the 1500 on the track. I personally want to pivot to run marathons. I think I have a very good aerobic base. I run some pretty awesome I've ran a solid half marathon, and then also I've ran some pretty great like training times for stuff, and it shows from a preparation standpoint that I would probably be able to do it, and I would love to try, and so that would probably be my next journey.
What do you anticipate your marathon time being?
Well, this is the thing is, you know, to be a great British marathoner and then also be a great world marathoner, like it's kind of different, and it's shifted a lot over the last couple of years. I think I can run, well, I shouldn't be saying this on a podcast. I think I can run in the 2:00s, definitely. I do think, you know, 2:05 seems like a number that I would be able to work towards from a split standpoint. And, you know, Kipchoge started off as a 1500 guy. So, you know, you got to think that it just makes the marathon feel slow. That's kind of the rookie idea that I've got in my head.
Makes the marathon feel slow because it's such a lower pace. Like even a 2:00 is such a lower pace than what you're used to running 1500 at. Yeah.
This is the thing, is I can chat about marathons all I want, and I think my whole perspective is going to change as soon as I run one, but I have an energy of a guy that's never run one, so I'll just bring that into my first marathon. But I do think I'm one of the best prepped track and field athletes in the world right now. The team that I have around me is incredible. I don't do anything and I do everything, and so it's every small percentage that you can think, from working with a performance coach on ice bath work and start line stuff and call room work and like just random stuff like that, to having different massage therapists and chiropractors and doctors and nutritionists and chefs. It's like, everything that we do is dialed into exactly what it's supposed to be. And I think that's where you can see margins in marathons, because you have such a longer race to get better. Like I can only get better over 3.5 minutes. But if you're saying that I can make jumps in 2 hours, that's a whole different, it's a whole different pitch to play the ball on. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
When you look at your life and the sacrifices that you're describing, so, the perfect nutrition, the perfect recovery, the perfect team, the perfect training plan, all of this stuff that requires immense discipline and commitment to your cause, do you ever feel like you just want to let your hair down? Do you ever let your hair down? And what does that look like?
Yeah, it's a balance. That's even something that we work on as well. It's like, what can we do mid-season to almost just like take a night off? I don't really drink that much, or I don't really like to party. I do like to go out and have a nice meal with my family and my friends and sit and chat and maybe have a beer or something like that. I think is kind of my ideal way to just relax. But we do work those into the season. I did that last weekend. We came off of our first win of the season, and we had a conversation. We were pretty locked in, and we have 4 months left of the season. So, my coaching staff are like, "Hey, you kind of need to switch off for a night or a weekend or something like that, and tell your chef to go home and go out and have a nice bit of food and some dessert and come home." And it makes a huge difference, just like not having to worry about that next long run or that next making sure that my carbs are exactly where they need to be and I get to bed on time. It's like having a couple nights of that every so often within the season is important. And then off season for me is very much switched off mentally. And so it's important. It also brings the most out of you. They always say that some of the best performances ever could be 2 weeks after the Olympics, because everyone's just relaxed and let their body like pretty much take the training on and get ready. So it's trying to balance it out.
I think it's very important, that, isn't it? Just as a general lesson, not just for athletes, just in life. When you're chasing perfection, or if you're chasing, being, your view of what you think you should be, at the risk of any kind of fun or kind of rule bending, and I'm talking about minor rule bending here, food, whatever it might be, the odd drink here or there. It's detrimental to mental health as well. Do you not think? And performance, I find, like obviously we're, again, I don't need to stress that we're not in the same athletic bracket, but it affects me as well. I just think people, normal people that love training, I think if you train and you train and you train and you lift weights 3-4 times a week, and you try and run 5 times a week, and you work, a full job, and you're knackered, and like, your glycogen levels are just completely depleted, and you haven't slept properly because you're not eating properly. All this stuff adds up. And then, you're in the middle of a training block and you kind of fall out of love with it. You don't, obviously, but like, it's quite easy to get up, isn't it, at 5 a.m. and go for a run around London, and it's freezing cold and you feel like shit, and you go, actually, I'm just going to stay in bed. It's just interesting. It's kind of, I see it as a really beautiful life metaphor. The kind of, the more you give to it, the more it gives back to you. The more you put into it, the more rewarded you will feel from it. But I was wondering if you had a view on that, just balance in general, I suppose, as somebody that has to hold themselves to the highest standards. Have you got to a stage where you can control it yourself a bit?
Yeah, it's such a great point, and running is you're right, it's such a great metaphor for life, because you can't overdo it, and every day that I get up, there's a decision that I have to make, and for me, it boils down to my why and why I want to do things, and that also means when I achieve something or I finish a run that I didn't think I was going to get up and do, celebrate yourself. Those moments are about celebrating yourself, and that's what motivation is. Being able to go out and do something that you don't really want to do, and the nice thing about running is hopefully you feel better afterwards, and then celebrate that. Like, not life is not this perfection, like everyone's going after exactly, it's going to be exactly how you thought it was going to be, and that's how it works. It's like, that's not how life is, and it's not how runners' lives are either. And I had to bring on a lot of people this year to help me, because it was so overwhelming. Because you're right, the calorie count, the macros, making sure I'm weighing, like, the amount of rice I have to have. It's like, that's not, I love food. And so I'm not perfect. And so I was like, I need someone to help me take this cognitive load off, because I'm trying to be better running. And I wouldn't say I'm a professional chef. I'm not good at it. I enjoy doing cooking, but it's not something that I look forward to. So I think from like anyone that's going out there and training, give yourself the benefit of the doubt and give yourself a little bit of a pat on the back sometimes, where even if you were just going out for a mile and you were supposed to do 10, you know what, you did something. That's really important to just say, like, let's celebrate the wins. And it even goes back to the Olympics for me. It's like, I finished the Olympic Games. I got my silver medal. I had a bunch of people around me. In the back of my head, I was like, I have a race in like a month. But then I was like, well, what am I doing this for? You know what I mean? Like, this is the achievement of the year, of the 4 years. This is the moment. And yes, it didn't go exactly to plan, but damn, we worked so hard for this. And these are the moments you have to soak up. And so as small as going for a mile run and, knowing that you did something hard and you should celebrate yourself is important, I think, in anything that you do, even if it's not running. But we do not live a life of perfection. I have not run every day I was supposed to run in the last 17 years. I haven't. I've definitely done a lot more in the last 6 or 7, but we make mistakes. But it's a day by day thing. We don't have to make up for yesterday. It's like, wake up today. How can you be great? That's the goal. Come back, celebrate that next day. And that's how we have longevity, I think.
This is an advertisement from BetterHelp. As men, we're taught to tough it out, hide stress, push through, and never let it show. But realistically, bottling it up doesn't make it disappear. You can't kick problems down the road. You have to be proactive and take action. True strength is knowing when to ask for help, and therapy can be a great resource to gain the clarity and tools to work through life's challenges. I wouldn't be in the mental place that I am today if I didn't do the work with trained professionals, both physically and mentally. Think of your therapist as a spotter in the gym. It's not about weakness. It's about having the right support to lift heavier and lift more frequently. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Build your support system with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/untapped. That's betterhelp.com/untapped. When you're tired, dehydrated, and struggling to concentrate, making smart decisions gets a little tough. That's why I take Vitals by Heights every single day. Initially, my team recommended it to me to keep me firing on all cylinders, because it's not just about keeping my legs moving, it's about keeping my brain switched on and ideally making better life choices. Vitals are packed with 20 essential nutrients, including omega-3s for brain power, B vitamins for energy, and vitamin D3, all formulated by scientists and dietitians. And it just gives me that extra edge, better focus, sharper thinking, sustained energy, faster recovery, and deeper sleep, all in 2 capsules a day. Vitals are the smartest way to fuel your body and mind, so give it a go. Get 20% off your first month subscription at heights.com/untapped or use code UT20 at checkout.
It's really interesting. It's also just the little wins stack up, particularly with running, and time will pass you by. Say you wanted to get into running and you run just a little bit each week. Over time, you will begin to find it pleasurable, easier, better. You'll get faster, you'll go further, you'll feel fitter and healthier and better. And I mean, I used to use running for all the wrong reasons. Like, I would go running basically so that I could prove to people that, oh yeah, look, I can run a marathon, so that people would spend less time worrying about how much I drank, how much alcohol I drank, type thing. Or like, you know, I'd go and run 10K and then use it as an excuse just to be able to eat trash, you know, that day, because I've ran 10K this morning, so it's fine. You know, like almost hedging, you know, shit situations because you've gone running. And now it's this really beautiful thing in my life where, you know, you can, as you said, you know, achieve this kind of flow state. This, you know, you can switch your mind off and just coast along the River Thames for miles and miles. And you know that you're doing a wonderful thing for your body and your mind. You know, you've got past the pain and you're used to it and it's a part of you. And it's just a really beautiful thing. It's why I love watching the Olympics so much, to be honest. And it's why I paid so much interest in your 1500 meter race, because I don't just see the event. It's like years of training to get to that point. And I just think the whole thing is so exciting that you would, you know, it's the accumulation of so much pain and heartache just even to get to that start line. It's an amazing thing, sport in general, but running in particular, I think is, you know, so wildly competitive, but also so beautiful because it's so hard, right? Like, to be where you're stood is so hard. And I just think it's so easy to watch it and go, oh, wow, you know, they're fast. But it's like, what it's taken to get you there is just incredible. And I find it so fascinating.
Yeah, we normalize, I think, that too much in life. You know, I'm sure, you know, if we look, you know, 5 years ago, you know, both of us looking back and looking to what we've achieved in the last 5 years, like, we'd be so pumped, fired up, like, just be like, wow, like we did that. Like, that's so incredible. Like, I can't believe how we did it, but, you know, keep trust yourself and maybe we can achieve those things. And then we achieve them and then we normalize them. And then, you know, me getting, you know, 2 Olympic medals and 2 World Championship gold medals, I'm like, yeah, I'm nowhere near where I need to be right now, you know, and that's so stupid to say out loud. I can hear it. I'm like, what a dick. But you know, it's a shame because, you know, it is an accumulation of hard work, and we forget those specific days of like, that was a tough day, but I won that day. You know, I was able to get out and then I was like, and then I celebrated that because I was really proud of myself and I treated my body the way it deserves to be treated. But it's just, yeah, it's such an odd balance. And I hope this year a bit more than ever for me, I normalize less and celebrate, you know, the small wins along the way a little bit more.
Do you always see yourself as winning the race that you're starting?
Yes, I have to. I do visualization of that specific race every event and watch multiple outcomes or multiple situations with the same outcome. And so it's very much, I've seen this before. I've watched me win every single race that I've ever ran multiple times. And even when I come last, I'm like, well, that one didn't quite work out, but you know, we'll figure it out. But you have to see yourself winning. Because no one's going to give it to you.
Do you specifically spend time doing that? So will you sit down and shut your eyes and visualize the whole race?
Yeah. I do it as a practice with my performance coach, and we go down to the track, and I'll do it as part of my pre-meet. A pre-meet is just like the day before the race. You go and you do your strides and stuff like that. You put your spikes on and go through a bit of a routine the day before. And part of my routine is you know, either standing or sitting on the track surface. And my goal, I would set an alarm for about 3.5 minutes, but you know, nowadays I can pretty much do that without an alarm, and just go through each step of the way and just see it for the first time. Because seeing things for the first time in real time is sometimes a little bit overwhelming. You know, if it's, I'm at the back and I shouldn't be, or if I'm, you know, I got clipped and I'm falling over or anything like that, like the way I need to handle every situation is important to practice.
Maya Raichora, who's a visualization coach and expert, and she was telling us that Michael Phelps does something similar, that visualizes his goggles filling up with water, and that he visualizes falling behind and being ahead and having to, maintain threshold, and also having to come back from last, and, does it over and over again. And Michael saw the clip and commented on it the other day, saying that was absolutely true. Is visualization something that all professional athletes practice nowadays then?
Yeah, I think a lot more people are getting help from like a mental health standpoint and also performance standpoint, because it's a lot of the stuff that you do is in your head. And so that's a great practice that, a lot of, those coaches can teach. And I think you're right. I think, the first time I did it was back in 2021 for the Olympics and or for the Olympic trials, actually. And it was mainly just because when you're trying to make your first Olympic team, it's almost like you don't want to, your biggest goal is to not make the team. Like, you don't want to like be fourth at the trials. And so there was a lot of that was like, what am I going to do if this happens? Like, if things, I feel terrible, and it's I don't want the first time of me thinking I'm not going to be an Olympian be the time where I'm about to not be an Olympian. So let's go through all those visualizations of feeling horrible in the race. And I felt really bad in the first round, and at British Champs, and then the second round I ended up feeling great. But it was one of those things where I didn't panic. I'm like, oh, I've seen this before. This is how we're going to pivot. This is how we're going to work through this. Because when your world can come tumbling down, like when your goggles are filling up with water in the Olympics, the first thing your brain's going to do is like, we've never done this before. We don't know what to do. But if you visualized it, you're like, I know exactly what to do. And so in these races, especially in, the swimming races and the running races that are short, we're making decisions in 0.1 of a second. If it's slower than that, we're slowing down, and that's not a good thing. We need to win those 1%. So I do think it makes a huge difference, and I hope that many athletes do it, and I wouldn't know why you wouldn't. It's another thing that you can add on without really taking much load on from like a runner standpoint, without putting more mileage in. It's a good way of getting better.
Touching on visualization being an important part, I'm assuming that you're talking about visualizing, the experience on the track, right? Because obviously you're familiar with that, what that's going to look and feel like. But how could you visualize something that, say, you've never experienced? So say, take yourself back to the first time you ever went to the Olympics. Is that experience of being in the Olympic Village a big, wild, crazy thing that, obviously you're unfamiliar with? How do you see that before it's happened, I suppose?
And that's where I tap into my kind of network of people that have been there before. And, for me, it was a balance. It was first Olympics for me. It was also middle of COVID. And so, Tokyo Olympics was just a wild place to be. So for me, I like to prep. And so, as track and field, we go in last. And so we see all the videos of everyone going into the Olympic Village. And so I just studied that as much as I could. And, I went out and I bought, it's cardboard bed. So I went out and bought, a mattress topper, and I brought, making sure that I had like some sort of air conditioning system in there, because there was no air conditioning system. And so just random stuff like that, where I can feel like I've got the edge. That's what I'm looking for is, I turn up to, the Olympic Village, there's 5-6 people living in this small apartment, and none of them have this stuff. And I have the first edge of the Olympics. And, that's my goal is how can I keep getting those edges? So when we're trying to, win those 50-50s, we have that slight edge on it. So that's where most of my stuff comes from. I just obsess over prep. And so that's where most of my prep comes from, is just analysis of what could come up.
Control what you can control, diminish the risk, I suppose.
Exactly. It's crazy how much can become controllables. That's what I've found over the last couple of years.
You strike me as just a really confident person who just deeply believes in their ability to deliver. Have you ever found the line between kind of confidence and arrogance a difficult thing to tread, or is that something that wouldn't even cross your mind?
Growing up, you don't have cameras in your face, and internally, when you're growing up and you want to be really good at something, arrogance and confidence it's a really thin line, and it doesn't really matter, like, because it's mostly internal. And having conversations with your parents, I'm like, I really want to win this race, and that's kind of how I grew up, and I didn't really lose that. But then more cameras kind of came in my face, right after I finished racing. And so my racing personality is pretty different to my home personality. I would say you don't want to have Josh Kerr, the 50 meter runner, in your house at all times. You don't. I get that. And so, but it's not really who I am outside of the track either. And so, but that is my on track persona. I'm there to win. I get paid to go out there and show off these brands and these my coaching staff and my team of people, and I work hard, and I'm like, I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to win. And that's really, really important to me, because at the core of things, that's what I get paid to do. And that's what I love to do. But outside of that oval, it's different, obviously. I'm a very family oriented guy. I love, that's all I love to do, is spend time with my family, and it's just different. And so, yeah, we walk a fine line, and I dealt with it a lot in 2022, to be honest, because I didn't know people cared that much about me. I didn't know that the world was watching me. And then when I did, and I realized, okay, like when I say these things, more people have opinions on me, and that doesn't always mean it's a positive opinion. But I'm not going to change who I am on the track to make people less upset about my opinion. So it's a balance that I'm even working through now. I try to be very authentic. I don't really hold much back. I don't have much of a filter. But I think it's important sometimes to maybe do that in certain situations. But it's very difficult when you're crossing the finish line, and one of the highest, most intense moments of your life, and you get a microphone in your face, and you need to be this, camera guy with a personality that's like, yeah, I love everyone, and running's great. And so it's just not who I am, really.
I think it's refreshing and cool. So I wouldn't worry too much about your on-screen persona. I think it's exactly as you say it is. It's fiery, it's resilient, it's confident, and it's backable. It's like I don't see it as anything negative, to be honest. That's not why I asked the question. I think that just generally, I'm trying to work parts of our conversation in so that some people listening can take things away, because the line between confidence and arrogance is a fine one. I think it's a wonderful thing to be confident. Obviously, being arrogant is not considered to be a positive character trait. So I was just interested in your view of how you manage the balancing act. But actually being arrogant, if you break it down, is just, being openly, extremely, confident in your own ability will be seen as arrogant. So nothing wrong with that. I don't think. I think it kind of depends, doesn't it? It depends. It depends how you play it. But I like the way you play it. You mentioned money along the way somewhere. I think you said you get paid to be an athlete, of course, obviously. You recently won 100K in Miami. How does that feel? Like, did the child in you kind of just find that experience cool? I think when certainly I go running with my 6-year-old, I take him for laps of the park, and I imagine that he's still a little bit young to be visualizing becoming an Olympic champion in any discipline. But was that just a cool moment, just winning that check in Miami? Did you ever think that you would be a paid professional athlete winning that style of prize money, like when you first got into running?
No, I don't think running it wasn't the big payday. It wasn't like the footballers or even the rugby players or anything like that, where, those guys are getting paid, big sums of money. It's also, the weirdest part is that we're a very big NDA sport. Like, you'll see it across the board in contracts. Like, you don't know how much money anyone makes, and we're not allowed to tell anyone how much we make. And I think it's not good for the sport, but it is the norm, and it's something that we're trying to turn around. And so having a prize pot that's so public is like really different. And for me, I was one of the first guys to sign up to this league, and so having won my first one was massively exciting. I loved that, and obviously, $100,000 is it's a crazy amount of money, especially for us. Like, It was so cool. But my goal that day was like to show everyone like, hey, this is hopefully less about the money and more to do with like these 4 majors are as important as like golf majors or tennis majors, where, you know, I've won Grand Slam track Miami the same as, you know, you could win the Open or the Masters or, you know, stuff like that. And I think that was what I was trying to say in my interviews. But internally, I'm like, that's a lot of money. So that's pretty cool. And, you know, I love that that's where our sport's headed. I think we've worked really hard to get it to that point, but it's not why I do it. You know, I didn't visualize winning money when I was racing, and I don't visualize winning money now. I don't know if this is the right thing or wrong thing to say, but I was almost happier that the other guys didn't win that money than I won that money. I was like, that's because we're all just we're all battling, and you know, the check hasn't come through yet. It'll come through at some point, I'm sure. And when that comes through, it'll probably be a little bit more entertaining than it was the last 10 days or so. But I'm so grateful that we're now in a position that, you know, the sport can offer that kind of money, and it's something that we're going to take time to get used to, I think, for sure.
Well, let's hope the mailman hasn't nicked it.
It's tough. They give you a cardboard check, and I was like, can I just take this to the bank and cash it? And they're like, that's not how this works. I was like, okay.
We like to leave our listeners with kind of something that they can take away from our guest, that they can incorporate into their daily lives. So I was wondering if you might have some words of advice on, I don't know, resilience, motivation, discipline, just small wins, just something from Josh Kerr, Olympic athlete, to your everyday person. What can they be doing, and what can I be doing to live a fuller and better life?
From my standpoint, what I see it as is we define too much on ourselves on the day that we've had versus the block that we've just had. So for me, I think we've got to allow ourselves the benefit of the doubt in some losses and know that there's a bigger win to come. So, you know, for me, it's, getting out the door is really important every morning, and you can stack those days, but be good to yourself after that. You know, be good. Take your wins with your losses, and just pretty much you're looking at your whole artwork versus just your individual wins and individual losses. I think overall your goal is to have more wins than losses. Try and win those battles, and motivation only comes if you don't want to do something. So no, if you don't want to do it, you got motivation coming right around the corner if you're able to get out that door. So I get inspired every single day when I go out running. I'm never the first person out on the streets, and that really annoys me because I'm supposed to be the guy that's out here first, and I get to the track and there's like 20 people there, and I'm like, I'm not even close. And so I mean, anyone that's going out and doing a little bit of movement every day and making maybe cognitive decisions on, you know, making sure you're getting the right food. So like, you know, getting whole food processes, I think is important. And, you know, I think together that amount of work will show in hopefully an amazing life. And that's what we're all trying to do. We're all trying to be here and have that definition of having an awesome life. So just keep doing what you're doing, I think.
Brother, wise words. Thank you so much for coming on Untapped. And I'll be hitting you up for a ticket to the track in LA in a few years' time when we're close to you winning that gold, my friend.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me. It was lovely.
Thanks so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed that episode. And if you want to hear more incredible conversations with extraordinary people to help unlock the potential within all of us, then please subscribe, follow, and review the show wherever you're listening or watching. Thanks again, and we'll catch you next week right here on Untapped.